Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. It is time to start turn number 7 in the Battle of Eutaw Springs. Before I begin though, just a quick note. In the last video, if you watched it, you already know this, I made a mistake where we had 3 battle results, which would have ended up with the Americans losing Army morale off the Army morale track. So there were 3 instances where this morale marker would have dropped. And I forgot to do it during the game, and what that means is the British, even though they did really good last turn, I think, they probably would have done a little bit better, because when this army morale drops, you'll note that it says unit morale goes to a -1. So every battle that followed where that morale came down below 11, there would have been a -1 bonus, I guess, if you will, for the British. And they probably would have ended up doing maybe a little bit better than what they did last turn, but I've got to do a better job of remembering that I include all of these adjustments in this. And there's not really a whole lot in this game to remember, but something like that kind of sitting off to the side. I should have caught it, but I didn't. So let's go ahead and begin, and we will start with the initiative. And here, of course, is where this Army morale track will come into play now, because if you remember, we were rolling the D10s for each side for initiative. They were both getting a +1 because they had high Army morale. Well, now the Americans will not get that +1 bonus. It's strictly a die roll. Initiative is going to be a 0 added to this die roll. So the British stand a better chance of seizing the initiative here, which might be a good thing because they're not doing too bad. So let's go ahead and roll these, and we'll see who's going to have the initiative for turn 7. And the results are a 0 for the Americans and a 4 for the British. So that 4 is a 5. So the British will go first here. They'll have the initiative. So let's go ahead and move the turn marker. We'll put it on the British side, and it is now 1 p.m. And the first thing we're going to do is go into the movement phase, and no reinforcements to place here, and disrupted units may move 1 hex. I think the British, yeah, there's no disrupted units on the British side. Shattered units may not move. I don't even think we've had shattered units on either side yet. And then, of course, pinned units may move if they decide to take a voluntary Army morale deduction. Now the British could do that here, because if they took the deduction, it would only lower them 1, and they'd still keep them in high morale, but there's no way they're going to do that. And now let's just go ahead and conduct our movement as we see fit, including strategic movement if we choose to do any. So up here, we'll start up on this side because we have this rifled unit hanging out in the orchard, eating fruit and not participating in the battle, but they are being pursued by Swamp Fox and the South Carolina militia that are up north of the plantation. So we're definitely going to want to move this unit. And where do we want to move this unit to? He could come back down towards the plantation. Now there is a unit with Stewart here. I don't think it's very strong if I remember correctly. Let's see. Well, strength points wise, it's not very strong, but it does have a +2 morale, so that's pretty good. Then we also have the units over here. We have the Charleston horses, and we have the light infantry unit. And that's a pretty good stack. So maybe we want to work this rifled unit back over towards the Charleston horses and the light infantry that is there. So they can move 4. And I don't think there's any movement issues for them through that fence or anything. I think we looked at that before. So they can move 4. They could move 1, 2, 3. No, can they move into that stack? So there's 5 strength points. They would add a 6, but do I want to move them into that stack is the question. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to go 1, 2, 3 to put them back in towards this campground. And what that will do now, it'll make it harder for these units to get at him. They'll have to come down and enter the zone of control of this stack or in between these 2 stacks. So it's a better defensive position there for the British. So that's where we'll move him. I think we're just going to leave these units where they are because they're in pretty good position there. And down here we have the Irish Buffs, who I believe retreated last turn, with Marchbanks and the New York Volunteers. So this one's just going to move right back up into the firing line here. So he'll regroup with Marchbanks. Now we have Delancey with the Coffin stack. So there's 2. I think he's going to do the same thing. He's just going to march forward and rejoin Coffin. If he can do that, let me make sure there's no stacking limits being violated there. I don't think so. That's artillery below. Yeah, so that's just going to bring that back up to 4 strength points in the Coffin stack here. And finally, we have these two units, the 63rd and the 64th down here. And they are 5 strength points total. They are not pinned. This other stack is pinned, so we can't move it. There are 2 strength points in there. So what we might do is move, this is a pretty powerful stack. Now we can't move it into the coffee stack or the Marchbanks, I don't think. Yeah, that's a 4 in there already. We could divide those units up and maybe send a unit to each of those, but let's see, can we do that? So we have 4. The artillery would not add to that. So this is a 3, and I think the other one's a 2. So we could actually get this stack value back up to 6. And then Marchbanks, he could probably accept the 3 valued one. No, he's already at 6, so he could not accept that 3 valued one. So what we might do is march, the 63rd is going to march into the coffin stack, and that should give them 6, and it does, with the artillery below all that. So we'll have a pretty powerful stack there. And then the 64th, I think, might just march forward and help out the 96th. I can't read that, but it looks like a militia group. And so let's just have them march forward, and they will join the pinned group here. So that's going to conclude our movement for the British. And that'll take us to the rally phase. There's no one on the British side that needs to make a rally check here, so we don't have to worry about that. And now we're going to go into defensive artillery fire. There is an artillery unit up here, but it's out of range. I think it's out of range. Let's see. We're looking at the range to hit table. It is not out of range. It looks like, well, this is just the range for, I guess, the effect. But can the artillery, let me have a look at the rules and the special rules to see how far this unit can fire. So in normal rules, the series rules, artillery can fire 3 hexes away. And looking at the special rules for this scenario, I don't see any changes to that. So I'm going to say this artillery unit can fire. And then the other thing we would need to worry about is line of sight. So this artillery is firing along this hex side to this stack, and that is considered line of sight. So you're going from the center of the hex to the center of the hex, and this hex spine here is not going to change that. It's going to be a clear shot. So they will be firing at a range of 2. So it looks like their strength points are 1. So it looks like they're going to have to roll a 9 to hit. And let's see, who do they want to fire at? And I guess they'll just have them shoot here at the Irish buffs right on top. So let's roll for the Americans here. They have got to get a 9 or 10 to hit. We'll check our modifiers here. Target is light infantry. It is not in the forest. It's not artillery, not rifle, not meeting house. None of these other things apply. Looking for a 9 or a 10, and they roll a 4. So their artillery misses. So let's put Marchbanks back on top. And we will move along in the sequence of play. Next up is rifle fire. Well, our British rifle unit is now back here in the encampment area, so he's not going to be able to hit anything. His range is adjacent. So that's going to take us into close combat. So for that, I will now zoom us in. We will start up here with the Charleston horses against Washington's dragoons and this light infantry unit. So let's start there, and we'll pick our lead units. Of course, the Washington's dragoons will have to be the lead unit for the Americans, and for the British, we're going to pick the light infantry unit. And now that we have picked our lead units, the Washington's Dragoons unit, if it weren't for the fact that the Charleston horses were sitting here, it could choose to do a cavalry withdrawal. But because there is another Dragoon unit in the attacking stack, that is not allowed. So that unit's going to have to sit there and take this punishment, which is probably not going to be good for the Americans. So let's go ahead and determine our odds ratios. It's 2 and 2 is 4. And for the Washington Dragoons, we're going to have to use the number that, well, let's see. I think we actually use the 2 because he is by himself. So it'd be 4 to 2. So that would put them on the 2 to 1 column. And now we'll quickly go down and get our modifiers to that. So let's see. So starting with the attackers, the lead unit was the light infantry. It is a +2, so the attacker's morale, that'll be a +2 for that. There's no leader there. There is, so no other attacker benefits, so the defender benefits. The morale for the Washington's Dragoon unit is a +1, so it's going to be the defender morale, that's going to be a -1. Well, now wait a minute here. See, I'm forgetting it again. So the morale for that unit is actually reduced by 1, so it's +1, but then a -1 for the Army morale track. So there'll be no adjustment for defender morale here. And there's no leaders there with that unit. And just checking down the list here to see if any other thing applies. I don't see anything that would apply. So it looks like we're gonna go to the tactics here. So this is not looking good again, like I said, for the Americans. Let's go ahead and get the dice tower in frame here if we can, because we will be rolling dice here shortly. So we're going to look on the solo table here for the tactics. We are engaging without a leader. Withdraw is certainly plausible. Use table 1. Table 1 asks us to roll a d8. So we were going to roll our d8 for the... Actually, I'm rolling for the Americans now. I should have rolled for the British first, but that's okay. So a 2 is a withdrawal for the Americans, which would make sense here. So let's grab their card. And I'll just put that out. We'll put it down below here because the British need to pick their card. So going back now for the British, they are attacking without a leader. And withdrawal here is also possible, or it's plausible rather. So again, we're going to be on table 1, and they are going to roll a d8. And they roll a 2, which is also a withdrawal. And so in a case like this, when they both pick withdrawal, that means that both sides will have to retreat 1 hex. We will start with the defender per the rules. So we will have, these units will just fall back to these rifled units. So both of those will withdraw first, and now the Charleston the Charleston Dragoon unit will withdraw back to this starred hex. And that will conclude that close combat. So we'll get this D8 out of here. And moving right along, now we're going to come down to determine who's going to fire at who down here. So it looks like we have this green unit is sitting here still. Strength points of 2. So I think we're just going to have Marchbanks go after green, Coffin's going to go after Hampton, and these pinned units will fight. So it's pretty straightforward down here. So let's have the British attack green. So that lead unit in there is going to be the Virginia Brigade, because that's the only unit in there with its morale of 0. And Marchbanks, you really should be doing the ratios first, but it's not going to matter a heck of a lot here. So the Irish buffs will be the lead unit. They are at 6 strength points, firing at 2 strength points. Put Marchbanks back on top there. So what I say, 6 firing at 2, that's 3 to 1. So on a 3 to 1 table, let's do our modifiers. The morale for our attacker here is, I think, what did I say? Morale for the attacker here was a +1. For the defender, it's 0, but with the Army morale track being where it is, it's actually a -1, so the defender morale is at -1. Leaders now, so there's Marchbanks is going to add a +1, and green is going to add a +1, a -1, I should say. And then looking at other modifiers, they are in light woods. I don't think that does anything for them, though. So it looks like that is all of our modifiers. Now we're going to go to the tactics table again. So starting with the British here, Marchbanks is... They are engaging with the leader. Opponent also has a leader. Is flanking possible here? Yes, it is. Is withdrawal plausible? Yeah, it's plausible. So use table number 9. So we will roll now for the British tactics. If I can grab the D10 here. That is a 7. And I'm rolling the wrong dice here. It's not the British D10. What I should be rolling, according to table 9, is a D8. So let's roll that again. We roll a 1, that is a withdraw. So we grab our withdraw card for the British, and then the Americans, again, let's run down this list. I think it's the same though. So they're engaging with the leader. The opponent does have a leader. Flanking for green is possible. So yes, we are, withdraw plausible. It's plausible. So again, table 9. We'll roll this D8 again. And that is a 6, and a 6 on table 9 is commit reserve. So we'll put that down for the Americans. They are not withdrawing. And if we look that up on the tactical matrix, so the British are withdrawing, the Americans are committing reserve. So that is a no modifier for tactics. Okay, so we are at 0 for all the modifiers. There's 2 +1s, there are 2 -1s. And we are on the 3 to 1 column. So this time we will roll that British D10 and see what they get. They roll a 5, and a 5 on the 3-to-1 column is a -R result. So that means that the defender will have to retreat here. And we'll take a quick look at the army morale chart to make sure we don't need to adjust that. And for a retreat, no. And then we look at our retreat results, and so it says we've been here before. The lead unit must certainly retreat, and then the other units will have to make a morale check to see if they retreat. So there's really only the Virginia Brigade in there. They're going to retreat back one. And let's see, what happens to green in this case? So this is the first time we've had a leader being left alone in retreat, but according to rule 14.31, leaders are never disrupted. If stacked with units which retreat or suffer disruption, the leader may either retreat with them or remain in place. They're only affected by the asterisk results. So green would definitely retreat with those units. He would not sit out in the open. So he's going to fall back with that unit. And then the British can, or they can't, well, they have to retreat at least the lead unit into that hex. So let's see, that's the Irish buffs. They will advance into the light woods. And do we want to Marchbanks and the New York Volunteers in there with him? And I think in this situation that, yeah, they would certainly want to advance along with that unit. So we're going to move up the New York Volunteers, and Marchbanks will move forward. And that will resolve combat in these two hexes. Now we'll come down to Coffin, and Coffin is going to attack Hampton. So let's look in here and see what our odds ratio might be. So we have the North Carolina Militia and the Palmetto Foot Unit. So that's 4 strength points for the Americans. And Coffin comes off. So the artillery unit will not count. We have 2, 4, 6. And the 63rd will be our lead unit. And our lead unit for the Americans. Well, it's going to have to be the Palmetto Foot since they're the highest morale is 0. We'll put Coffin back on here. All right, so that's going to put us on the 6-4. Is that what I said? So yeah, it looks like we're at 6-4, so that should put us on the 3-2 column. And we will now get our modifiers to that. So we are attacking with, I've already forgotten, but I think it's a +1 for the attacker morale. It is, so +1 attacker morale. We have Coffin there, it's another +1 for the leader's close combat modifier. Any other attacker benefits here? Don't think so. So now we go to the defender. We do have Hampton there, so he gets to add his +1. And then we had our lead unit's morale was 0, but that gets knocked down to a -1 because of the army morale track. So the defender morale is a -1, and that will take us to tactics. And so we will start with the British. Are they engaging with the leader? Yes. Does the opponent have a leader? Yes. Is flank possible? It is not possible. Is withdrawal plausible? It's plausible. So use table 7. Table 7 says to use a d6. We roll for the British. And they roll a 4 on table 7. A 4 is skirmish, so that's a skirmish for the British. And I didn't get these cards out of the way, so let's do that and put down the skirmish card. Okay, let's step through it again for the Americans. They are engaging with a leader. The opponent has a leader. Flanking here it is not possible. Withdrawal is plausible. So again, table 7, and that d6 gets rolled again for the Americans. And they roll a 4, which is also skirmish. And we've learned that when they both roll the same thing, they get a 0 modifier. So there's the skirmish card. So skirmish and skirmish is going to be a tactics result of 0. So we have 2 +1s, 2 -1s again. This is just going to be a die roll on the 3-2 column of the close combat table. So let's roll the British d10. They fire. They roll a 4, and a 4 on the 3-2 is a pinned result. Let me grab a pen marker. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, well, let's just grab a pen marker and we'll show these as being pinned. I was just going to move over those other pen markers because we're about to do that battle. Probably should have. So these guys are pinned. And that is going to conclude that battle. And then we come down here. I'm going to remove the pin markers now. I probably should have just transferred those. And that will be our next battle. We'll go down here now to we got the 64th and this militia unit, it looks like, going against the North Carolina Brigade. So let's go ahead and start with getting our strength points here. We have ratios 5 to 3. And 5 to 3 also puts us on that 3 to 2 column, or that 3 to 2, yeah, the 3 to 2 column of the close combat table. And let's go ahead and get our modifiers. The attacker morale here is, well, the lead units are, it has to be the militia and the North Carolina Brigade. So the militia there's a -1, so that's going to be a +1 to the roll for the attacker morale. And then there's no leader there in that stack, so no close combat modifier for that. And nothing else seems to apply here. So looking at the defender now, that North Carolina Brigade is at a 0, so that's going to be a -1 for defender morale. There's no leader, so nothing else is going to apply here. We just go to tactics again. So looking at our solo tactics table, the British are engaging without actually no, they're not. They still have the adjacency of Coffin here. So I'm going to say they're attacking with a leader. The opponent has no leader. Flanking here is possible. Withdrawal is plausible. Table 5. So table 5, roll a D10. We'll just roll that British D10. And we get a 1 on table 5. That's a withdrawal. And get these cards out of the way again. So withdrawal for the British. I don't know why they would choose to withdraw there, but that's what they chose. Going back to our table yet again, get this D10 out of here. The Americans, they are engaging without a leader. Withdrawal is plausible. Table 1. We roll the D8 again and get a 6, and a 6 on table 1 is attack on echelon. So there is that. We look up on our tactical matrix. We have a withdrawal for the British, an attack on echelon for the Americans. It's a -1 to the roll for the British. So tactics give them a -1. So we will get this out of the way. So on the 3 to 2 column, we have 1 +1 and 2 -1. So there's going to be a -1 to this die roll for the British. So let's roll on the 3 to 2. That is a 0, -1, that's bad. So that's a -1 on the 3 to 2 column. That is a 1 with an asterisk and a dash. So that means it's a step loss for the attacker. And that asterisk means leader casualty. Oh no, but that's okay because there's no leader in that stack. Woo! Anyway, though, that is going to be a step loss for the lead unit. So let's see, can he take the step loss? So we picked the 64th, I'm pretty sure that can flip. It's a regular. So he can flip. So he's going to go down to a 2, from a 3 to a 2. And of course, we have to remember our Army morale adjustment. So looking at the Army morale adjustment, a one step loss result. Well, this is good for the Americans. It's going to move the British marker down to 11 morale. The American marker will go from 8 to 9. So they go back up 1. So that's good news for the Americans. And now we still have to resolve the rest of this. And by that I mean we have to do a morale check now for that militia unit. He just witnessed his friend getting a step loss there. So he's gonna have to make a morale check. So we're trying to get a 5. He's at a -1 morale. So it's gonna be roll a D10. He's trying to get a 5 or greater, but he gets a -1 for the roll. Well, he's past that with flying colors. He got an 8, so he's okay. They don't have to retreat. So leave those in that hex. Get these cards out of the way, and I believe that's going to conclude close combat for the British. So let's take a look. All right, so you can see I've adjusted the Army morale. The Americans here are at 9. The British have fallen to 11. So that was good news for the Americans. And we have concluded our battles for the British. So what happens now, we go back to the game turn marker. We flip it. Well, we'll flip it that way. And it's now the American turn. All right, so we go down the movement phase for the Americans. Place reinforcements. No, disrupted units may move 1 hex. So let's move our disrupted units. Who is under this D? Kirkwood. So he's going to move forward 1. That's all he can do. And underneath this one is the Maryland Brigade. That is a powerful, powerful unit. And it's going to have to move forward 1 as well. So it's going to join green again. And actually, let's leave green on top until at least we resolve the morale check for the Maryland Brigade. And down here we have Pickens Sumter. He's going to move forward 1. Do we want to move him forward 1? We might want to bring him down and around. We might want to go into the heavy forest here. Let's move him down for now. So he'll try to join these other 2 units, or at least this other unit. That's a cavalry unit, so maybe we'll have those 2 link up. All right, so we've moved our disrupted units. There are no shattered units to move. Pinned units may move, but we don't want to do that. And now we go back into just regular movement. Let's start up north with the Swamp Fox and the South Carolina Rifle unit. So Swampy can move 5, the Rifles can move 4, but we don't want to move those separately from each other. We want to keep them together. So we might want to bring them down now to go after this stack. There's 5 strength points in there, and we have 3. Well, maybe we don't want to do that. Of course, we also have the Charleston horses over here. They could join them. I think they could join them. 1, 2, I think it would be 3, 4, 5. They wouldn't get there in time, though. They could come around this way. 1, 2, and they would be at 1. I don't know, that would be an interesting battle. So let's do it. Let's bring, so the slower moving unit is South Carolina Militia, so it would be 1. The creek side there would be a +1 to cross that, so it would be 2, 3. And then Swampy could certainly move into there. So yeah, let's go ahead and move them forward. So they're coming down now into the encampment area, finally. The Dragoons, we'll move those next. They can go 1, 2, so let's do that. 1, 2. So they're coming around to help Swamp Fox. Our artillery unit here, let's see. Let's move it, I think we can move it back into this stack. I don't think that has any artillery. So we're gonna just move that artillery unit back into here. And the Lee's Legion here, I think he can probably get back into this pin stack. Yeah, he can. So we're going to move him forward. That'll help out Hampton there. And I'm having a hell of a time with these tweezers. I don't know why. I don't know if it's kind of shaking a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I got low blood sugar or something. But it's not doing so good with the tweezers. All right, I think did I get everybody back in there? So we should have now Lee's Legion. Yeah, I think everybody's back in there now. All right, I shakily got them all back where they're supposed to be. Down here, we can move. This unit is just going to come back up and try to help the North Carolina Brigade. This unit is still disrupted here. So I think we are good now with movement for the American side. So the next thing for the Americans, the rally phase, we're going to make a morale check for each friendly disrupted or shattered unit that is not adjacent to an enemy combat unit. Well, I probably shouldn't have moved this unit into this stack. I didn't realize that they would not be able to make a morale check. So what is that going to do to their combat? Let's take a look and see. Actually, that was an illegal move anyway, so let's go ahead and move that unit back. He shouldn't have been able. You can't move a disrupted unit into a zone of control of a enemy unit, which makes sense. So this Maryland Brigade should have just stayed put where he's at. Now we've got it corrected. Now we're going to do a morale check. We'll start up here with, who is this? It is Kirkwood. All right, so let's grab the D10 for the Americans. So Kirkwood is at a +1, but they're still at -1 overall for Army morale. So it's that's +1 and a -1's a 0. So he's got to get a 5 or greater to pass this check. It's a 2, so he stays disrupted. Moving down to the next unit, the Maryland Brigade here. They're at +2, so they're going to get a -1 to that for Army morale. So they do get a +1 to this roll, looking for 5 or greater. They roll a 5, so that's a 6, so this disrupted marker now can come off. But he has to stay where he is for now. And then we come down here to Pick and Sumter, so he's at a 0. Be a -1 to this roll, looking for 5 or greater. It's an 8, so this disruption marker will come off. So the only one that stays disrupted is up here. And the other units are okay now. So that will take us out of the rally phase and into the defensive artillery fire phase. And I think, and under this huge stack, we have light artillery. And I believe that light artillery would fire at this stack in front of it. So let's go ahead and grab the pin marker, and that's Hampton under there. So who does the artillery want to fire at? Probably this Palmetto Foot unit, as that's the strongest unit there. So that's who he's going to fire at. Okay, so he's strength points are 2. He's firing adjacent, so looking for a 6 or greater to hit here. So let's take a quick look at the die roll modifiers to see if anything applies. He's firing at, actually, if he had fired at Lee's Legion, that's a light infantry unit. That would have been a -1 to the roll. But so, okay, yeah, that would not have been a good thing. So I guess he made the right choice. The target is not in light force, so that's okay. And it looks like nothing else here will apply. So it's going to be at strength point 2, firing adjacent, looking for 6 or greater to hit. That's a 0, so that is a miss. And that's going to take us out of defensive artillery fire. And I can't even pick up these units with my fingers. Tough time today. All right, so that's going to conclude our defensive artillery fire. And with that, I will zoom us in so we can start close combat. Okay, and now that we're zoomed in, it's not close combat we're going to start, it's rifled fire, because we do have rifled units to go through. We have, up here, we have Swamp Fox, and I think with the rifled unit, yep, there it is in this stack for the British. And it's actually not Swamp Fox, but it's the South Carolina militia below him. So we are going to conduct rifle fire again here. And rifle fire here will be simultaneous. So let's go ahead and get the dice tower back into shot. And we will have the Swamp Fox will, the South Carolina militia will fire. They're at strength 1. They are firing adjacent. So they are going to be looking for a 7 to hit. Let's make sure there's no modifiers. Just looking down the list, there are no modifiers to this. So the Americans will fire first. Again, this is simultaneous fire. Looking for a 7 or greater to hit. That is a miss. And now the British player gets to return fire. And it's also at strength point 1, firing adjacent, looking for a 7 or greater to hit. 6, so both rifle fires miss. And that will take us into close combat. So let's go ahead and keep where we are here with the rifle units. So the first thing we'll do is we'll get our strength points. We've got 1 plus 2, that's going to give us 3 for the Americans. And the British are at 3 plus 2 is, it's like 5 for the British. So that is, what is that? 3 to 5 will put us on the 1 to 2 column, I believe. Our lead units. So for the Americans, it's going to be, we're going to have the, we'll have Swamp Fox be our lead unit. Risky. And then for the British, we're going to have the, let's have this light infantry unit be our lead unit. So those are our lead units. And we go down the list of modifiers, the attacker morale. We're at +1, Swamp Fox, but we have an army morale track that's going to give it a -1, so our attacker morale is going to be a 0. There's no leader there with that attacking American stack. Any defending unit is a rifled unit, so here they're going to get a +1 because there's a rifled unit in that stack. Nobody is disrupted. There's, well, wait a minute, there is, any attacker is mounted dragoon. No, that's not going to what happened. Militia, defender surrounded, Nelson's Ferry, no. So defender benefits. So we're looking now at the defender morale is a +2, so it's going to be a defender morale is going to be a -2 to the roll. There's no leader in that stack. Any attacking unit is a rifled unit. Yep, so that's going to be a +1 to the roll. Or I'm sorry, that's actually going to be a -1 to the roll. Now looking down these other modifiers, I don't see anything else here. No, I was going to say there's Swamp Fox, but he's not in a swamp, so he's not going to get to add anything to this, or subtract, I should say. So now we've got to get the tactics. All right, so starting with the Americans. Are they engaging with a leader? Swamp Fox, I believe, is considered a demi-leader for this, and I think this is where he is actually able to contribute to tactics because he is a demi-leader. So they are engaging with a leader. The opponent has no leader. Flanking here, it is possible. Withdrawal is plausible. Use table 5, and table 5 is going to ask us to roll a d10. So we will roll for the Americans. They get an 8, and an 8 is a frontal assault. So frontal assault for the Americans, and then we will look at the British. They are attacking without a leader. And let's back up here a minute because I'm leaving somebody out of this. And what I'm leaving out of this is Washington's Dragoons here ought to be involved in this battle too. It should be these 2 stacks against this 1 defensive stack. So what that's going to mean is, I said we were on the 1 to 2, but that's not true. We're actually on, it was 3, so Washington's Dragoons, this is interesting, is he's not, I don't think he's considered attacking alone here since there's multiple hexes involved. All right, so yeah, he's not really attacking alone. This 2 would come into play if he were alone, but I'm going to say since they are combining their attack here against the 1 defending hex, that he is not alone, so it's going to be a 1 to that. And so that would go from a 3 to a 4, so they would be at 4 to 5. Well, they're still going to be on the 1 to 2 column, so that's not going to change anything. So let's go back now to the tactics. I just realized that unit was sitting there and we didn't include him into this, but it didn't change anything. So for the British, we are looking at engaging without a leader. And withdrawal here is plausible. So we're going to use table 1. Table 1, we're going to roll the d8. For the British, we get a 6. That is attack on echelon. Where is our tactical matrix? We have frontal assault for the attackers. The defenders are attack on echelon. That's a 0, so there'll be no modification here for tactics. We have a +1, a -2, and a -1, so 3. -3 becomes a -2 to the roll. So the Americans are on the 1 to 2 column, and they are going to get a -2 to this roll. This may not be a good thing for the Americans unless they roll really high. So 5 on the 1 to 2, that becomes a 3 on the 1 to 2. So it is a D/no result. So the attacker here is going to be disrupted. Uh-oh. All right, so disrupted, and it's going to be the lead unit. It's going to be Swamp Fox there, but so we've got to remember to look at our army morale. So if a D result will mean a nothing gain for the British, but it will be another -1 to the morale for the Americans. So now they're going to go back down to 8 morale. I'll move that back down to 8, back where they were. And so Swamp Fox now is going to have to retreat. I believe it's 3 hexes. It is. So Swamp Fox is going to have to pull back 3 hexes. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and he will earn a disrupted marker. They have disrupted Swamp Fox. And now this other unit, the South Carolina militia unit, is going to have to make a morale check. So he's at 0 morale, but it's a -1 because of the overall army morale. So he's going to roll and -1 to this roll. So it's 3 minus 1's a 2. So he does not pass his morale check. So he must retreat 1 hex. And we'll just bring him back across the creek. And then Washington's Dragoons, don't believe they have to make a morale check here because they were not in the stack with the lead unit. So I'm just going to leave him there. And that's going to resolve close combat for this area. So let's continue along. All right, so coming down to the next attackers. Let's see, this is green. We'll get our strength points first. So it's going to be 2 and, oh no, so there's only this unit in here. This is a Virginia Brigade and green. And I'm just going to try to put this where it doesn't, we can still see it. So that they only have 2 strength points, and they're going against Marchbanks that has 6 strength points. And our lead unit we're going to want to be the Irish Buff, so we'll put those on top. And we'll put Marchbanks there where we can see him as well. So we have, what did I say here? We had, I think it's 6, it is. So we have, what do we have? I'm confusing myself. The British are not attacking. We have 2 going against 6, so 1 to 3, right? So on the 1 to 3 column, that is not good for the Americans here. Perhaps they should have pulled back. On the 1 to 3 column, let's do our modifiers. We have the attacker morale is 0, but it's a -1 because of the overall army morale for the Americans. They do have a leader, that's green, so that's going to be a +1 to the roll. And that's going to be it for the attacker benefits. Now the defender, we have the defender's morale is +1, so that's going to be another -1 to the roll. And we have Marchbanks is at 1, so that's going to be another -1 to the roll. And now we have to find out what the tactics are going to be. So we have the Americans are engaging with a leader. The opponent also has a leader. Flanking, it is possible. Withdrawal is certainly plausible here. Use table 9. Table 9 says roll a d8. So the d8 is here. Let's roll for the Americans. They roll a 4, and that is skirmish on the results. Grab these cards out of the way. So that's skirmish for the Americans. The British are engaging with a leader. The opponent has a leader. Flanking here is possible. Withdrawal is plausible. So again, we're going to be on table 9, rolling the d8. And they roll a 4, which is also a skirmish. And again, we know what that means. There's going to be a 0 for the tactics in this battle. So where does that leave us? We are on the 1 to 3 column, which is the lowest column we can be on. We have 3 -1s and 1 +1. So we are at -2 on the die roll for the Americans here. So on the 1 to 3, they roll an 8 -2, so that's a 6, so not too bad. It's a pinned result. They could have done much, much worse there. I think they might have gotten lucky. All right, so we're going to add a pin marker to both of those stacks. And I'm going to move these pin markers this time, if I can, without knocking everything over again. We'll just transfer our pin marker. So they become pinned, and let's get these dice out of here. And now we're going to come down to the next stack. So the next stack is Hampton versus Coffin. So let's go ahead and get these cards out of the way. So Hampton, let's go ahead and get our ratios and our lead units. It's going to be 5 for the strength points, and our lead unit, we're going to pick Lee's Legion because it's the +1. Going against the Coffin stack here, who do we want to be the lead unit here? And probably Delancey. And what is underneath there? Oh, that's the artillery. I thought I was in violation of stacking again. Okay, so yeah, they're going to pick, do they want to pick Delancey? They can pick either one of these because they're both at +1. I will pick the 63rd. So the 63rd will be our lead, and we have Coffin still out there. So it's 5 to 6. That's going to put us on the 1 to 2 column. And attacker morale is at +1, but it's a -1 for overall army morale, so that's a 0. We do have Hampton, so the close combat modifier for Hampton is going to be a +1 to the roll. And that's going to do it for the attacker benefits. The defender benefits, they're going to get a -1 to the roll for the defender morale. Coffin is there, so the close combat modifier for Coffin is going to give them a -1 to the roll. And now we need the tactics. We have the Americans are engaging with a leader. The opponent has a leader. Flanking is not possible here. And withdrawal, it is plausible. So table 7 wants us to roll a d6. So we'll do that for the Americans. We roll a 5. That is a frontal assault. They're feeling brave, apparently. For the British, they are engaging with the leader. The opponent has a leader. Flanking for the British here is, I'm going to say not possible. Withdrawal is plausible. So table 7, again, D6 for the British. They roll a 6, which is commit reserve. So commit reserve for the British, and then we look at the tactical matrix with the frontal assault for the attacker, and commit reserve for the defender is going to give us a -1 for tactics. Oh no, for the Americans. So we have 3 -1s and 1 +1. So we're at -2 on the 1 to 2 column. And we will roll for the Americans. They are attacking. So that is 0. -2 is going to put them on the -2. Oh my God, that's as bad as they could do. So what is that? That is an AC/no result. So the AC is going to be captured, attacker's choice. So let's resolve that. Let me get this dice out of here. So let's go ahead and determine who the British want to capture here. They'd love to capture Hampton, but it has to be a combat unit. So let's slide him back for a second. So of these, I think they're going to want to take Lee's Legion because he's got that morale that's so high. So we're going to take the Lee's Legion unit out. It has been captured by the British. We're not quite done yet though. Let's go ahead and move Hampton back off there because we're going to have to do some morale checks because that happened. Okay, so let's do our morale checks real quick here for the Palmetto Foot unit. His morale is currently at 0, but he gets a -1 due to army morale. So looking for 5 or greater. Rolls a 6, so that's -1's a 5, so that passes. But in the case where you have someone captured, that's not a good thing. It's still not a good thing. So if he passes, he still has to retreat 1 hex. So let me move Hampton back again. We'll put him over here for now. And this Palmetto Foot is going to have to retreat, which is the best that can happen here for him. So he's going to come back 1. Now the North Carolina militia is at a -1 morale, but it's another -1 because of army morale. So -2 to this roll, looking for 5 or greater, is a 6, but the -2 takes him down to a 4. So he's going to earn a disruption marker. And he will have to retreat 3 hexes. Get these cards out of the way because he's retreating. So he's going to have to retreat 3. 1, 2, 3, and he gets a disrupted marker. All right, and then where did Hampton go? He's here. All right, so Hampton is here, and he is just going to choose to retreat along with the Palmetto Foot unit here. So he's going to pull back with the Palmetto Foot unit, and that will end close combat for these 2 stacks. And so now we will go down to the last stack to conduct close combat in. So Lee's Legion, and who else is under there? The North Carolina Brigade. Strength points total of 4 going against the 64th, which is already reduced, and the 96. So it's going to be 4 against 4. So that's going to be on the 1-to-1 column. And our lead units, of course, I believe it will be Lee's Legion. We need that +1 for the Americans, and then for the British will make the 64th, we'll make the 64th our lead unit. So let's go down our modifiers. So the attacker, we get a +1 for the attacker's morale, but with the -1 from army morale, that's a 0. Looks like there are no other attacker benefits here that would apply. So let's look at the defender benefits. Our lead unit there is a -1 morale, so it's going to be defender morale. It's going to add a +1 to this roll, and looks like no other benefits, no leaders in the stack or anything there. So let's go ahead now and get our tactics. Okay, so the Americans are engaging without a leader. Withdrawal is certainly plausible here. Use table 1. Table 1 says roll a D8. So let me grab my D8 and we will roll to see what the Americans get. That is a 2, which is a withdrawal. So let's find that card and put it down. Withdrawal for the Americans. And now we will do the same thing for the British. They are engaging. Well, in this case, they have Coffin back here, so they can add his tactics, or we can use his tactics for this. So engaging with the leader, The opponent has no leader. Flanking is possible, and withdrawal it's plausible. So table 5. Table 5 says to roll a d10, so we're going to roll a d10. And that is a 9, turn flank. Turn flank for the British. Looking at our tactical matrix, we have withdrawal for the attacker, and we have turn flank for the defender, so there's going to be a 0, nothing for that, nothing for tactics. So we're looking at just a +1 to this die roll on the 1-to-1 column. And so the Americans will attack. 7 + 1 is an 8, and on the 1-to-1 column, an 8 is a no result /D. So that's going to be a disruption for the British. So let's get this dice tower out of the way. And the lead unit there was the 64th for the British. So we're going to retreat them 3 hexes. So let's do that. He's going to go 1, 2, 3. So he gets a disrupted marker. And the other unit there, who is that? The 96 is going to have to make a morale check here. So we have looks like a -1 to the roll. Let's put the dice tower back on here. We'll make this roll. Let's see, so we're looking for a 5 or greater. So 7 - 1 is a 6, so that's enough to pass. So that unit will not have to retreat. It will stand there in the light woods. And looking at our army morale adjustment, so let's go ahead and zoom back out. And I'll remove these cards. So the army morale adjustment, the British suffered a demoralization there, so it's going to be no gain for the Americans, but the British will lose army morale. So they're going to fall into the same fatigued category as the Americans. So they're at 10 now. So they're going to start getting the -1 to their morale rolls from this point forward. So that's it for combat for the Americans. So these units will remain here. And I don't believe there's any other close combat to resolve for the American side. So yes, that will end close combat. We'll do a victory check, but we're not there yet. So we're going to continue on. We'll move the turn marker. We'll place it above turn number 8, because when we come back, we will begin turn number 8. And you can see up here, I did move the British morale down to join the American morale marker in the fatigued column. So -1 to both at this point. So that was an interesting turn. I'm still not sure what's going to happen with the Americans here. I don't think it's looking too good though. In order to win this thing, they really needed to grab 2 more of these starred hexes to help them bring the British morale down, but they really needed to get into this camp and try to get some of that. And of course, ideally they'd want to grab the blue star outside of the plantation house, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we will stop it here. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here next time.